Alright you guys, and welcome back to a brand new sculpting video. And one urge every sculpting YouTuber seems to be giving into is the constant temptation to sculpt a shark. And for me that moment of relapse was this week, as it's been almost 5 months since my last shark related sculpture. So to get started I want to shape this unshapely block of clay into a beautiful round ball. Nice, I wonder what else it can do. Whoa, what is that? Get off my hand, dude. Oh, alright, I'm never doing that again. So for the rest of the video, I'ma rather get back to the old-fashioned way of sculpting. Oh, and dear YouTube, before I get into any trouble making immature jokes, I don't know what you saw, but clearly I was just panicking over the sight of an elephant forming in my hand. Which is completely reasonable since I'm sculpting a shark here and I didn't want to go down any wrong path. Speaking of which, I'm currently blending in a nice thick wiener working as my shark's tail, followed by blending in his upper jaw in layers, which, once blended in, brings me to throwing some teeth into the mix, where I prepared some dental triangles already hardened in a way of almost setting my house on fire. Luckily for me though, all I was left with was the unhealthy scent of burnt clay. So with some teeth crispier than others, I compressed them into his upper jaw, or maxilla for you nerds, where I simulated natural wear and tear by breaking some of them. I then got to making the lower jaw of my spider. Oh yeah, right, forgot to tell you, I'm making a shark and spider hybrid. I would have mentioned it earlier, but I was busy burning my teeth and coping with the emergence of a elephant forming in my hands. Anyways, I then added some nostrils to my spider shark, or spark, as that is the best name I came up with. Followed by making his big dorsal fin realistic enough to scare off some tourists at the beach. Said fin then gets blended to my spark's back, alongside his second dorsal fin, which I made a little bit smaller. Then it's time to add the first spider-esque feature to my shark, which in this case is gonna be an octet of eyes. The back row of which contains significantly larger eyeballs, which I can only imagine is an attempt to compensate for them being further away. The front row consists of 4 much more familiar sized balls, which I placed into some smaller sockets, and that brings us back to sculpting some fins. More specifically his caudal fin being the biggest and most impressive of them all. However, I still regret not adding an anal fin, as I'm typically not one to miss out on such opportunities. Anyways, it's time to make him some legs. To make said legs, I'll be using some cast clay and wire since I want them to remain somewhat flexible after baking, just in case their initial positions won't line up. Alright, who am I kidding? I knew there was no way I'd get them to line up perfectly, and using cast clay was a desperate rescue attempt. So after bending, covering and detailing 6 legs, I made another 2 shorter ones, since every child knows a spider has 8 legs. And so does the spark. Now, to connect those legs to the shark body, I poked in 8 holes using a ball, but I won't be connecting them yet, since I'll go through much less pain and suffering if I paint shark and spider separately. But we are not done with sculpting, since whilst having lost most of my empathy, I'm not inhuman, so I ought to make some food for my spark, where I landed on making the flysh. Cause it resembles both of my hybrid sides' favorite dish. With the flysh done, I can bake both of my fish, or fishes I guess, and don't worry, I put some lemon in the oven for added flavor. Once baked and crispy on the outside, I got to painting them, starting out by coloring the spider shark's gums and teeth in a fleshy pink color, and I'm aware that its teeth are white and not pink, but I'll get to fixing those later. And apparently I couldn't help myself and broke off another tooth, which I then glued back into place, making weird noises. With dental treatment done, I got to tanning the shark's back, and instead of red or brown as us humans, shark skin seems to be getting a dark bluish grey tan when exposed to sunlight. I mean, I couldn't believe it either, but how else would you explain just his belly being white? Anyways, after postulating theories without any scientific backing, I painted his already black eyes black, I know, redundant, and then fulfilled my promise of painting his pearly whites white. Next up I got to painting his vitamin D lacking belly, which I gave an initial coat of white primer, followed by some beige over top, as that seems more natural looking. Gradually working my way up to the snout, where I can then get to recoloring his eyes, to add some more dimension and also fix some of the blue overpaint. And since I've yet to meet a shark in a dentist's waiting room, I'd assume they don't really give a damn about their dental care, so I added a nasty brown stain to the teeth. I then couldn't resist using the sponge for some added effect, but wasn't really satisfied with the result, thus leading to the spark not being sponge worthy. Anyways, I then gave all 8 legs a brown base coat, which is all I can be bothered to add since I'm already in a rush getting this video out on time. However, I compensated my laziness of painting by giving them tiny black hairs, which you can spot on spiders when looking closely. Well, in hindsight that definitely wasn't worth it, since that took way longer than a wash or dry brush ever could, and now I'm even more behind schedule. Still gotta admit they look quite lovely. Anyways, I then glued them into place and pressed them down to make them look somewhat leveled. And finally, to make those eyes shine, I gave them a thin coat of UV resin. And you'd think that's us done, and frankly, so did I. However, when taking a glimpse on my desk, there still was an unpainted flysh lying around, and my workload got expanded. Luckily, there isn't much to do when it comes to painting the flysh, so I just gave the eyes a dark orange wash, followed by giving it a shiny green coat like a blowfly, or in this case, a blowflysh. Finally, I made 2 wings out of UV resin and glued them onto the flysh's back, and that's 2 weird animals done. Alright, thank you guys for watching. Let me know which weird animal combination you wanna see me make next. Leave a like for the flysh and subscribe, baby. And if you wanna get some behind the scenes or early access to my videos, I recommend checking out my Patreon, and it is much appreciated. Also, check out last week's video, and I'll catch you in the next one. And I love y'all. Bye.